Today, we're with Isabella Popa, who's a strategist and a strategy finishing school member. She's going to talk you through her strategy portfolio. So, Isabella, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Julian. Looking forward to showcasing to you, as well as those watching at home, my strategy portfolio. Before we get into the crux of things here, hi, I'm Isabella. I am a creative strategist, a cultural explorer, and an art enthusiast who's worked on some iconic brands in my working so far with Sprite, for example, Hershey's, and Pandora Music. But moreover, I'm someone fueled by curiosity. I love to travel and immerse myself into cultures through art, music, and human connection, with my ultimate goal of understanding how others navigate the world. And with this passion, combined with my media background and expertise, give me the edge to craft strategies that resonate with people across platforms. And I liken a strategist to an artist in the sense that strategy is the art of gathering inspiration from the world around us and organizing a plan to craft a story that resonates. And I'll exemplify this through a recent Nike ad example in which the brand sought to stand out from competitors during the 2024 Paris Olympics by solidifying itself as the brand for winners. But the problem was, in a culture that thrives off of polarization, wanting to win has a losing reputation. Society normally accepts when athletes prioritize having fun when playing sports, but there are athletes that are more achievement-driven and that their motivation in playing sports is to win, and this often gets criticized. And this criticism largely stems from achievement-oriented athletes not playing by the same rules as everyone else. Case in point, rules of society state that those who are ruthless and selfish are bad people, whereas the rules of an achievement-oriented athlete is that those who are relentless and selfish win. Net, traits that are considered negative in one context are considered positive in another. That doesn't mean winning doesn't have a dark side. Tim Grover, a well-respected coach and mentor to some of the world's most renowned basketball players, such as Kobe Bryant, wrote in his book Relentless that what winners have in common is not necessarily their talent, but a willingness to embrace their dark side. And this dark side doesn't necessarily mean that they're morally corrupt in the sense of, in sports terms, things like illegally fouling or fighting with the refs, but rather tapping into a more focused, determined mindset that pushes them towards victory. And what I mean by a focused, determined mindset is more of an inner dialogue, which, if it were said out loud, it might ruffle a few feathers, things along the lines of athletes thinking that they're better than their opponent and therefore they're going to beat them. But again, it's really needed and necessary so they can achieve greatness. Therefore, the insight is, in sports, being a bad person is what it takes to win. With bad person in quotes, because I am to destigmatize what it means to be a bad person in society's terms by taking ownership of it. And in the strategy on the page, I have that Nike wants to stand out from competition in the saturated Olympics environment. The problem is, in a culture that thrives off of polarization, wanting to win has a losing reputation. However, in sports, being a bad person is what it takes to win. So we need to remind everyday athletes, or rather those achievement-oriented athletes, that there's nothing wrong with wanting to win, so that they can be unapologetically competitive on the field, helping Nike solidify itself as the brand for winners. And the idea platform for the Winning Isn't For Everyone campaign is one that Nike redefines winning by celebrating the dark side of successful athletes with the few that get it. The first part of this idea redefines winning. The idea must reframe the association of wanting to win with a bad person from a negative thing to a positive thing. The second piece, celebrating the dark side, the idea needs to uplift athletes that lock into their killer mindset to win. And lastly, the piece around the few that get it, the idea must underscore that the minority that understand this ad campaign in general, as well as the idea of the dark side, have what it takes to win. And now let's take a look at the hero messaging.
Am I a bad person? Tell me, am I? I'm single-minded. I'm deceptive. I'm obsessive. I'm selfish. Does that make me a bad person? Am I a bad person? Am I? I have no empathy. I don't respect you. I'm never satisfied. I have an obsession with power. I'm irrational. I have zero remorse. I have no sense of compassion. I'm delusional. I'm maniacal. You think I'm a bad person? Tell me. Tell me. Tell me. Tell me. Am I? I think I'm better than everyone else. I want to take what's yours and never give it back. What's mine is mine, and what's yours is mine. Am I a bad person? Tell me, am I? Does that make me a bad person? Tell me, does it?
And before we move into the next slide, it's important to note that the campaign that ran over the summer was largely an awareness-driven one, with out-of-home messaging, video messaging, as well as social media executions. But for this communications framework, as well as the next slide, I re-envisioned what this campaign could have looked like under a 360 platform. Starting with the comms framework across the living, looking, and buying phases, I've outlined the key barriers, the comms tasks to overcome those barriers, and the channels to showcase the messaging for us to achieve this 360 platform. Starting with the living phase, the barrier here is that for most, the success of athletes is only celebrated every 4 years during the Olympics. Therefore, the comms task needs to be one of celebrating what makes professional athletes bad people, their dark side. And this messaging can be showcased across TV, paid and on social, OTT, which, for example, is your streaming services or Roku or Fire Stick, out of home, and PR. As for the looking phase, the key barrier is that everyday athletes do not feel represented by Olympians, deeming their greatness unattainable. While it's true that winning from an everyday athlete standpoint is not necessarily winning as an elite athlete, but winning is still within the realm of capabilities for the everyday athlete, as long as they're competing against those within their same skill set. Therefore, the comms task is to electrify everyday athletes to claim victory by tapping into their own dark side. And we can accomplish this through online video channel, audio, the Nike app, as well as digital partnerships. And lastly, with the buying phase, the key barrier is that there's a saturation of the sporting goods brands, making it difficult for the audiences to determine which brands to choose from. Therefore, the comms task is one of not acknowledging that winning is not for everyone, but it is for athletes who strive to be the best by buying the best. And we can showcase this messaging across search, banner retargeting, paid social retargeting, and e-commerce. As we move into the campaign ecosystem across these 3 pillars of living, looking, and buying, the channel that all of these ladder up into is e-commerce on the Nike website, where the audience can purchase product. But taking it from the top with the living phase, just want to highlight across OTT and on social. With the first exposure to these ads, the users will subsequently be served messaging with banners and paid social driving down the funnel. Whereas the role of TV and out of home will capture ham raisers who are interested in what we're selling within the hero messaging so that they can search whether it's on Google or Bing and drive them to the website to purchase product. Lastly, through the looking phase across online video, audio, and digital partnership channels, the call to action there will be to drive audiences to the Nike app where they can tap into their own dark side. And this will be celebrated along with the professional athletes through PR. And then again, as with all the other channels, the other piece of the app will be driving out a link to the Nike website to purchase product. And here I included an example tactical brief from the looking phase in which I identify that we need to get everyday athletes who think that wanting to win has a losing reputation to be unapologetically competitive on the field, electrifying them to claim victory by tapping into their dark side on streaming audio services where they're listening to playlists to get in the zone and crush their training session. And lastly, this work timeline outlines the key strategic outputs that I showcased within the strategy portfolio and the grand scheme of where they fall within the larger campaign milestones. And that wraps up my strategy portfolio.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Isabella. I think a couple of things that really stood out to me, which I really loved in your presentation, was firstly, the way that you bring in the tension in those insights of both, it was like the losing and winning, and having the polar opposites in one sentence just makes it really stand out and kind of pop a little bit more. And then I love that slide where what's all right in society versus what's all right in games was really good. And I think you did such a great job at doing a strategy setup, like the setup slides that really led you to a really good strategy on a page. And then I just love your insight about reframing what a bad person is. Also, appreciate you going through on one case study all the way through and showing all the framework. So it was a really great presentation, kind of just put together as one piece. And you've got a really good design eye too. I know sometimes as strategists, we get kind of really carried away with the strategy, but can't like put it all down in a beautiful deck like that. I think you did really well with that. Isabella, I'd also just love to hear from you, your background, like what led you to the strategy finishing school and deciding to sign up?
Well, I grew up in my advertising career in the media sphere, but I always had the interest within the strategy landscape because I'm someone who's innately curious and wanted to be able to connect the dots with understanding not only how people engage with media, but also things that just interest them overall and figure out how to put together a puzzle in a sense in order to get them or motivate them to purchase a product. And the strategy finishing school really helped me in the sense that I didn't necessarily have the tools within my day-to-day media planning career. With that going into the strategy space, I didn't have the confidence to go in there and tackle it from day one. But since going through the program, I've learned the necessary skills in order to really hit the ground running and know what I'm doing without having the fear in the back of my head that I don't know how to accomplish the key pieces.
That's great. Was there anything in the strategy finishing school, like a framework or a toolkit or even a lesson that really was like a light bulb moment for you that you found really helpful?
The benefit ladder was very interesting to me because I enjoy the idea of a visual and being able to take my thinking to a more bird's eye view level versus getting in my head and focusing on the little details of things. So that really challenged me to think outside the box, which is really important for a strategist to do.
Yeah, I feel like that's benefit ladder has helped me as well because I was definitely one of those people who would be down in the functional benefits. And when I heard other strategists speak and they'd talk about like emotional benefit or a consumer goal, I'd be like, how did they reach those steps? And I think, again, yeah, that is what the benefit ladder does really well. So thank you so much for sharing us that strategy portfolio. Excited to see the work you go and produce going on from here.
Thank you.